Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the All Sooners podcast. It's Wednesday. It's September 6th. We're kind of between games right now on a Wednesday, so we got to talk about last week. We got to talk about this week. This is episode 204. That is Ryan Chapman. He's over in Moore, Oklahoma. I'm John Hoover, and I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're going to be joined later on from Oklahoma City by Randall. Randall Sweet's going to bring us some recruiting information, 411, whatever you want to say. Ryan, how's it going? How's your week? We got some softball news to talk about too. Golly.
I know it's going good. I do not appreciate Oklahoma landing the top overall commitment in the softball world. We'll talk about that later. I also caution everyone, softball rankings are weird, so we won't have the normal clarity that you do. But I didn't need softball in the middle of my football, John. We're trying to lock into football season. We have a game. Oklahoma rolls. FPI is insane, and we got softball news. So we'll do the football first.
I could tell you were pretty excited about the softball news yesterday when it broke.
It felt correct. So I was like, I've got like 7 things I still have to do. I was like, Randall.
Yeah, Randall's good to have around for sure. He's very versatile. So we're talking about we're opening up with last week season opener, 73-0, Arkansas State. Butch Jones needed a hug. He really needed a hug, and thank goodness for him, he got one. His player picked him up off the sideline from a kneeling position and patted him on the chest, kind of on the ribs, and said, "Coach, it's okay. It's okay." I thought that was an interesting visual from that game. But Oklahoma, Ryan, with authority from downtown, bang, they hit it. All those basketball analogies. Holy cow. What do you think? Am I oversimplifying? Did this team in the season opener, when we compare Brent Venables' first season last year, their season opener, and then you kind of transition into the Kent State game and what a disaster that first half was, did this team just look different? Am I going too far or oversimplifying, or what do you think? Did it just look like they played harder, cared more, whatever?
Yeah, I don't think you're oversimplifying at all. I do think the team had an edge in the non-conference last year. Remember, it came from a spot of like, yeah, everyone's counting us out because Lincoln Riley left. We'd like to prove them wrong. They proved everybody right on a 1-year sample last year. This year, though, it didn't seem like it was this, we have to prove everyone wrong chip on their shoulder. I think it was like we sucked last year. We'd like to not suck this year, and all the things that need to happen. It looked different in terms of physicality. It looked different in terms of simply offensively. They took their time in front of the third downs, and boom, suddenly you had a really, really, really nice third down percentage. It looked different as far as they were able to go fast and slow. Think of that Javante Barnes drive where they basically just power out of the shotgun, and it was Barnes over and over. They weren't in any rush to get to the line of scrimmage. I do think it looked different. Dylan Gabriel looked comfortable. The defense looked comfortable. It looked different. Now, Arkansas State stinks. Sorry, Butch. I don't know if that means that they're better. Like, I think they're for sure better. I don't know if that means that there are 7 wins better. I don't know if that means that they're going to win 8 games, 9 games, whatever. That's where it comes into we saw this song and dance last year in the non-conference, but they clearly looked different in game 1 this year than game 1 last year. Remember, after that 21-0, it was 21-10 in the second quarter against UTEP.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I agree. They looked different. They looked more connected, better chemistry. They looked like they cared more, more awareness. And you would think that would be part of the case in year 2 under the football coaching staff that they have now. Year 2 in the Venables defense, year 2 in the Levy offense. Everybody's a little smoother. I asked Dylan Gabriel on Monday. I said, "Did you feel different, from last year? It looked like you were more confident, believe it or not. A guy who's thrown for 12,000 yards in his career and has been a multi-year starter at different schools. He comes out on Saturday against Arkansas State, and he looks better than ever. Now, I'm with you, it's Arkansas State, but Ryan, the last time somebody lost a season opener to Oklahoma by a greater margin of points than 73-0, 1917, University of Central Oklahoma Broncos. We think they were the Broncos at that point. I don't know. They may have been something else. What the point is, and what the emphasis here is, there's been a lot of games, as Brent Venables said in his postgame press conference. There's been a lot of games over the years that OU opened the season opener, right? That weren't 73-0. They played a lot of bad teams, and they've had some unbelievable national champion, all-time type great teams that didn't open 73-0. So maybe what we saw Saturday was a little bit of a hint of better things to come.
Yeah, and I think that too, and I understand the fan base is not going to be content until OU Texas probably, and then that's when they'll make the final determination on the first part of the season. But the team can be better. It also could mean that they're not Big 12 championship good. They could be Big 12 championship good, and the Arkansas State game is not an early indicator of that as well. Arkansas State is a bad football team. They dominated a bad football team in a way that in a complete way that we haven't seen in a little bit of time in Norman. And I think, like Brent Venables said it after the game, no one in that locker room is beating their chest about it. Andrew Rames said it yesterday. With all due respect to Arkansas State, everyone knows that was Arkansas State, and they've got a much better football team coming in this weekend. That does not jive with Brent's nameless, faceless opponent, but I think it is just the reality of, you can say all the cliches, the players know Arkansas State stinks, and they'll get tested a lot this weekend. But is there anything that coming off? We had our post-game pod, which if you haven't listened to that, allsters.com, everywhere you get podcasts, fire it up. But I know we both watched this game back on Sunday, a little bit different view. Was there anything else specifically that you came away from? Because I had a short list, but a couple of things that maybe didn't hit on immediately in the post-game pod.
Yeah, we can do that. I wanted to get into some what the freshman class looked like. 19 true freshmen played, and most of them played really well. Made kind of a statement about where this recruiting, the number 4 ranked recruiting class in the country, and how they were able to step in the first game of the season and make a real impact, make a positive impact. Not all 19 of those guys are going to play every game. That's just the way it is. We know that. But I think you can pick out of that group of 19 and say, okay, that guy, look out for him. He's coming. I think that this is the first time in a while that we can say that across the board on a freshman class.
Yeah. Whether it was Peyton Bowen, whether it was Jackson Arnold, Jaquez Petaway, all those guys we talked about in the post-game podcast. But for me, looking around, like Jacoby Johnson getting in there, all I was able to do on game day was say, that's Jacoby Johnson. Because if you know what we do, we have the live blog and everything going, that at times it's less sitting up there and just going, sit back and watch the game. And it's more of okay, we need to put this in the live blog, let everybody know all this stuff. Going back and watching him, it was one of those guys that you didn't notice because he was good enough in coverage that the ball's not really being thrown that way. I thought Caden Green, when he got into the game at left tackle, held up perfectly fine. You didn't see some of the mental errors initially, to my eye at least, that you sometimes see with some freshmen. And so I thought that was a really, really good sign, as Oklahoma is going to want to beat, the defense has to be better so that they can pull away from teams, so that they can get more experience for these guys as the season goes on, because they're going to need a bunch of these guys next year in the SEC.
Yeah, Petaway, the wide receiver, Jaquez Petaway, led all freshmen with 40 snaps, according to Pro Football Focus. Caden Green got 38, and he was in the game a little bit. Was he in the game in the second quarter? I think he came in early third quarter, start the third quarter with Jackson Arnold, who got 32 snaps. Cade McIntyre, summer enrollee Cade McIntyre, came in and he got 19 snaps. The running backs combined, Dalen Smothers and Caleb Hicks, got 21 snaps. And then on defense, you saw Peyton Bowen leading the way, as expected, with 24 defensive snaps. Jacoby got 14. And I'm with you as well. That was a little bit of a surprise. Josiah Wagner didn't play. He got a late, camp injury, nothing serious, I'm told, but kept him out of the lineup. PJ Adebawore, Sammy Omasigo, and linebacker Lewis Carter. Yeah, they all got 11 snaps, and then you kind of fill in, the kind of the fourth quarter stuff after that. But those guys all got double-digit snaps. You know how huge that is for their development as players, and not just 2023, but you start to look at 2024, SEC's coming. It's huge, absolutely huge.
Yeah, big time. And PJ Adebawore, if you were surprised at how late he got into the game, Brent Venables talked about that was a guy that's a little banged up in camp and not totally healthy the whole way. Healthy now. And I would expect as the season goes on, the plan for him simply has to be more and more and more. That doesn't mean he's going to be a starter. Doesn't mean he's going to play 50% of the snaps, anything like that. But as R. Mason Thomas steps back to the lineup, he's available this weekend. PJ Adebawore, those guys are the future at defensive end for Oklahoma, and they need to get those reps, and they will.
Yeah, agreed. So 19 freshmen got in. On defense, Ted Roof was very proud of this. Overall, Brent Venables said they played 87 players. I think Roof said they played 44 total defensive players.
He said they play the whole 4 deep on defense.
Yeah, PFF, exactly. There you go. PFF has them with 42, so those numbers pretty much jibe. 40 guys got in on offense, and then you throw in the special teams. So when it's 73-0, here's the part that stands out. Maybe one of the many parts that stands out is that when it's 73-0, okay, let's call it 66-0. You've got your third team and your fourth team on the field. You've got a bunch of freshmen who've never played college football before going up against an Arkansas State team that's like, damn it, can we get to the end zone, please? Can we please get some points on the scoreboard? They're trying their butts off to score. They're doing what they can. And Oklahoma held them out. All those freshmen, all those backups, all those guys put their heads together and took some coaching from their upperclassmen and the starters and even the coaches and said, we're not letting you score. Then they got, the late touchdown as well, 73 to make it 73. So I just think that's a referendum kind of on the quality of depth. I said it, competitive depth that Oklahoma has developed this training camp.
Yeah, and this is not a shot at Lincoln Riley or that staff, because this goes back all the way to the later era of Bob Stoops, post-2009, when maybe the recruiting wasn't as good. How many times would you see an Oklahoma team totally in control, the second, third stringers come in, and it's not a big panic moment, but 10 points get let in on the board in the last 20-ish minutes, the last 5 minutes of the third quarter, fourth quarter. No one's worried about it or anything. It didn't make those teams bad or anything like that, but it's different when the bulk of a top 5 recruiting class is a lot of defensive guys. It wasn't top heavy with just offense. It was offense and defense. And I thought you saw too an absolute hunger, a seriousness from those guys. And I think that speaks a little bit just to Brent Venables talking about, this is how you're supposed to do a walkthrough. This is the intensity you're supposed to have. This is the edge you're supposed to play with when you're in practice and all that stuff. And again, against Arkansas State, I hope everyone understands that does not mean that because the 4 stringers had an edge, he's going to the playoff, but it's different. It was noticeably different from even last year, which was a Brent Venables team. They were trying to preach it last year. Feels like that part of it at least has seeped through. Now this week they'll have a much stiffer test, and those a couple of wide receivers that were running free, those couple of drops, they will pay for that against SMU if that's there. So there's stuff to improve. That's
right. Yeah, SMU coming up this week, 5:00, ESPN Plus. We'll get to SMU in the next segment. Ryan, what did you want to finish this segment with about last week's game?
Yeah, I just thought 2 things, and this isn't an original thought. A lot of people had this as evidenced by the fact that we talked to Kip Lewis yesterday, but I thought he played really well, and that's a guy that I kept hearing was having a really good camp, but it was almost one of those things that because he's technically backing up Danny Stutzman, I don't think anyone was super worried about it. And then you hear that they've been working guys at different spots just in case. And you got to see the first linebacker substitution was not Connor Neer for Jaron Kanak or Kip for Stutzman. It was getting away for Stutzman and Kip Lewis to play together. So I think that's really interesting. And then we talked about the underthrows for Dillon Gabriel on 3 of the Andrel Anthony passes in the post-game show. The first one of those, the one that they connected on, it looks like Tawee Walker missed a blitz pickup. So I don't put that on Dillon Gabriel, because if he stepped into it, he was going to get annihilated. And while you need to stay in there and step into it, you don't need to do that against Arkansas State. The other 2 were a bit underthrown. One of them looks like the one where Andrew Anthony got tackled. Looks like the ball slipped out of his hand almost. So not giving it a pass, but maybe need to do something there. But the flip side of it is Dillon Gabriel should have had 1 incompletion because the other 2 hit guys in the hands. So you take, you give. All in all, Dillon Gabriel was still incredible on Saturday.
Yeah, and if he hits 1 or 2 of those pass interference penalties, I think there were 3 deep ones. You're talking about 350, 360, 380 yards for your starting quarterback with, like you said, 3 incompletions and two were right here. And I asked him about those, and he said, not everybody's perfect. You can't always be perfect. He's trying to take it on himself, like a quarterback should, like a leader should. He wanted to put a better ball out there for those guys to catch. You want to talk injuries in SMU in the second segment?
Let's do it. Let's talk injuries, SMU, and you want to sprinkle in a little softball in that second segment.
All right,
Second segment.
They're coming up next on the All Sooners podcast. And we're back. You can give us a follow at all_Sooners on Twitter. Find me at John E. Hoover. Ryan is at _Ryan Chapman. We've also got Ross at Ross Lovelace. Randall Sweet 5. And Tim is at Tim Willert 2. Randall's going to have all the recruiting news for you, so check that out. Randall Sweet 5 on Twitter. The website, of course, is allsooners.com, Fan Nation affiliate, Sports Illustrated Network. You know the drill. And All Sooners is always free. No signups, no emails, no passwords, no credit cards. You don't get any discounts with us because 0 is the discount. That's how much you pay when you sign up with All Sooners, because you don't have to sign up. Just click and enjoy all of our content for free. Right, Ryan?
And we do the content. We happen to do the content. Just hit that football tab and scroll through and scroll through and scroll through. And guess what? You'll be to Sunday. You keep scrolling and it'll just have been Sunday. We have so much stuff, videos from all the player sessions, stories, the whole thing.
We're off to a record start for the 2023 college football season, just in terms of traffic and fan engagement, readership, and all that good stuff. So appreciate all you guys for making All Sooners what it is. We've been doing this for 3 years now, and we're hoping that this is going to be our best year. It looks like it. I assume if the team is good, we're going to have a good chance to follow that up strong. We'll find out more how good the team is on Saturday when they play SMU. I keep hearing about this. SMU's a different animal. SMU this, SMU that. I get it. They are. I'm not saying they're not. But we're still talking about for now, right, group of 5 team. They play in Tulsa's conference. They got Tulsa next week. OU does, right? I mean, is there a big step up, Ryan? Arkansas State to SMU? Or is it just a kind of a step up?
I think there's a big step up, and I think that has just as much to do with how bad Arkansas State is as it is with how good SMU is.
Probably.
I think that SMU, they're not because, like, look at it yesterday or you look at it this week, and Preston Stone is absolutely a different kind of quarterback. He's the highest ranked commit in SMU history, at least in the modern internet recruiting era. But this was still a 7-5 football team last year. It's not like this SMU squad is busting at the door of a New Year's Six bowl or anything like that. They're not what Tulane was last year. But when we're looking for defensive improvement, John, a couple of things. First off, their offensive line. They returned the 3rd most games played in all of college football, this group. That's not starts, that's games played, but it's experience. And it's the 3rd most in college football. And as Brent Venables said on Tuesday, you can't replace experience. There's not a lot that Oklahoma's going to be able to throw at them that schematically, at least the offensive line hasn't seen. And it also means that SMU probably going to trust those guys to not be in max protect the entire game. So if you have unanswered questions about the pass rush, because we didn't get to see a ton of it on Saturday, that's one area that we can learn something. Stone can throw the ball downfield. Right, gives you a little bit of Gabriel vibes from last year, boss, of watching him in the first half against La Tech last week. Couple of misses that feet weren't set, things like that. But otherwise, he's got a cannon. And if the players are wide open, he'll hit those guys more often than not. So remember TCU last year, it wasn't even competitive plays downfield. It was communication. There's a lot of new pieces on this OU secondary. If there's communication issues, SMU should be able to exploit it. Jordan Hudson should be a good test for a bunch of new secondary members. We don't know what Gentry Williams is as a corner because he wasn't thrown at all. We'll find that out. All those things, like SMU is good enough to tell us those things, but there's a reason this line opened at like 16.5, 18 at circa. This should still be an Oklahoma win, but we should be able to learn more because they're playing. It's closer to a Power 5 team than whatever the hell Arkansas State brought last week.
Yeah. Now keep in mind, the Arkansas State coach used to coach at Tennessee. The Arkansas State quarterback used to play at Tennessee, right? So he was a high-level recruit as well, went to Knoxville, so JT Shrout was. So I'm just saying, I think there's a step up. I don't know if it's huge. And it's going to take us a couple of weeks to be able to evaluate what we saw last Saturday and lay it over kind of the course of the season and say, okay, Oklahoma really is that good, or Arkansas State really is that bad. You know, if Arkansas State goes winless or something like that, then we'll know, right? If Oklahoma goes undefeated, then we'll know. We'll have a pretty good handle on things. But yeah, Preston Stone, by all accounts, a good quarterback. He had a good game last week, 248 yards and 3 touchdowns. Completion percentage was fine. Spread the ball around a lot. I said this on our wrap yesterday, Ryan. SMU has got a couple of guys that were at one time committed to Oklahoma. This is not some rum-dum group of 5 lousy SMU team that, you know, we've seen in decades past. This is a solid SMU team that has been recruiting the DFW. Well, they've gotten a lot of action through the transfer portal. They've built up their roster. And guess what? They've got an offensive-minded head coach by the name of Rhett Lashley. Don't know if you guys know much about Rhett Lashley. Speaking of Arkansas State, he was their offensive coordinator, hired at the tender young age of 29 years old, Rhett Lashley was. At the end of that season in 2012, he was hired at the tender young age of 29 years old to coordinate the Auburn offense. So he was an SEC offensive coordinator at 29. And in 2013 at Auburn, he was a Broyles Award finalist. So talking about a guy who knows offense. He's got a history with Ted Roof. He's got some, you know, crossing paths type history with Jeff Lebby. They're good. Kamar Wheaton, the running back that committed to Oklahoma, went to Alabama and now's at SMU. I don't even know if he played last week. I don't think he got any carries because the guys in front of him are that good. But he was coming to Oklahoma. He's that good. So there's guys in front of him that are even better. Just an illustration for how good this SMU offense is.
Yeah, I'm still not 100% sure that Kamar Wheaton exists, based off his recruitment and his lack of production in Alabama.
You think he went to Bishop Sycamore?
Yeah, he might have gone to Bishop Sycamore. Here's the thing, though, as well. So if it plays out this way, Hoove, on Saturday, if SMU has some explosive plays and scores and then other drives where Oklahoma's kind of shut down defensively, I also want to caution everyone, that was kind of how SMU played against La Tech, and no one's pretending that La Tech's a good football team. So if SMU gets to 30-something, that's obviously panic button. If SMU scores 17 points off of 3 huge explosive plays, one of them stalls out for a field goal and then doesn't move the ball otherwise, that also might just kind of be what SMU is, and that doesn't necessarily mean that Oklahoma really shut down a ton. That they obviously scored a ton in the first half against La Tech, but it was a lot of it was heavy on explosive plays as opposed to a bunch of sustained drives going boom, 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 boom down the field. So if I'm an Oklahoma fan, what I'm looking at to say improved, obviously under 17 points or under, including garbage time. But also, if I'm OU, that big play moniker, 20 yards or more, I'd want to not have many of those whatsoever. And there was some opportunity, like we mentioned earlier, against Arkansas State that by way of a drop or Shrout just not seeing somebody because he was trying to get the ball out so quick, that didn't happen. So it'll be interesting. They're going to air it out. We saw Kenai Walker with the strip. If the secondary is that much improved, they need a pick in this game because SMU's going to throw the ball enough to really show that. Or at least a couple of break on the ball, pass breakups. Maybe there's not Stone. Maybe Stone's really efficient, doesn't put it in danger, but need to see some pass breakups and there should be opportunity as opposed to just overthrows, underthrows, drops.
What do you think of Brent talking about, we was talking about SMU. He said, we have to get a better pass rush. Our pass rush, we got to get to the quarterback. That's got to be part of our game plan. And in reviewing Arkansas State, well, we're not going to get to the pass. We're not going to get to the passer in this situation because they're max protecting. I think only a handful of plays did they even try a true drop back. They're getting the ball out 1.5 seconds, he said. Those two things don't necessarily jibe to me. And maybe, he's like, on one hand, he's saying, hey, the pass rush was fine, which it was. It was he said he looks at in terms of what, evaluating a true pass rush when you don't have quarterback sacks and quarterback hurries to count. What do you look for? You look for hitting guys, knocking them back. You look for disruptive. You look for hitting, shooting the gap, and being in the backfield. Just looking like you're back there because they're getting the ball out super quick. Now you spin it forward to SMU. Is SMU going to do some of the same thing? Is SMU going to max protect and try to get the ball? Because I got news for them. It didn't work. 73-0 doesn't work.
Yeah, if you pair what Brent Venables said about the pass rush Saturday after the game and then on Tuesday, here's how I took those comments. Coming into the game, they figured that Arkansas State was gonna try and either max protect or get the ball out quickly or both. And because it's game one and they didn't need to do anything, they were just going to be as generic as possible with 3- and 4-man pass rushes. And they weren't even worried about trying to get to the quarter. Like if they get sacks, great. If not, that wasn't even part of anything. They were like, you always want to get to the quarterback, duh. But they were not like, hey, we need to put this blitz package in so we can generate a sack on a third. Like none of that was happening. I'm not saying that you're going to see the entire playbook this weekend, but I think Oklahoma knows.
Yeah.
SMU has enough faith in Stone that if they can give him enough time, they think that Stone will be able to make plays downfield, which means that he'll be holding onto the ball a little bit longer to get Jordan Hudson down the field, stuff like that. And I also think, too, that SMU will throw a lot more screens and stuff. So while that may not be pass rush, it's trying to keep Oklahoma honest in that way as opposed to max protect, which means that we need to see more of Gentry Williams coming up and blowing up the one, opportunity that he had. Should be some opportunities there. I think that's what you're looking for from like the OU coaching staff perspective, based off kind of Venables' just nonchalant. Yeah, I wasn't worried about it Saturday because he doubled out. Was like, it is better. I assure you, today was just not the day to judge that.
Okay, that makes sense. Personal foul penalties, 3 in the first quarter and a half. I think I didn't have a problem with any of them. The Reggie Pearson standing out of bounds and making sure the quarterback did not cut up field, which he said yesterday, that's happened to me before, and the guy scored a touchdown, so I was just making sure that wasn't going to happen again. I love that. He's like assessed, but I'm standing here, you ain't going past me, so knock the hell out of the quarterback there. The Blake Smith blindside crackback block was I'm all about player safety, and I'm all about eliminating blindside crackback blocks. That was not a blindside crackback block. That was not one of those blocks that's like putting somebody's life at risk or, the young man's ability to play football. He just kind of jumped in there and got in the way of a guy. It's like, come on, let him play football. And then the third one was a face mask penalty that you can't really plan those. You can't really do much about those. You're reaching up and whoops, got you by the face mask. I got 3 of those in one game playing in a high school game once. So still sorry to those dudes. Your thoughts on OU playing more fierce, better, harder, faster, just in terms of more aggressive? You like what you saw there?
Yeah, it wasn't a persistent issue, and it wasn't like if it had been 3 roughing the passers or 2 blindside block, you know what I mean? I would have been maybe a little bit more, okay, that doesn't need to happen. But one of them happened on the first defensive drive of the game. That was the Pearson. If you want that defense to play with an edge, the very first game, someone's going to get a personal foul. It is, you know what I mean? Like if you want your defense to play on that line, somebody's got to get it. And Reggie Pearson was like, yeah, and I immediately blew up the next play to let the guys know I set the tone, but also I got you. Same with Smith. That happened. Was that the second offensive drive? It was early.
So. Yeah.
Because it was going into the south end zone. So again, you want to play with that edge. There was either going to be a personal foul on the O-line, probably Savion Byrd, or something like that of guys downfield. Because it also means guys are blocking downfield, which I thought that was a big area of improvement on a 1-game sample with the receivers and the tight ends downfield. So didn't have an issue with any of those. I also think, too, that Pearson had a little bit of he talked to us about, like you said, someone scoring last year on him because it looked like they were going to fall out of bounds and turned upfield. The other thing, too, is I think he knew in the back of his head, this isn't OU Texas. Quinn Ewers is not going to suddenly march that team down the field and extend a drive. And now it's 7 key points in a fierce game. It was Arkansas State. And you set the tone. It is what it is. I didn't have an issue with any of the Tyler Guyton hold. That was not necessary. Other than that, didn't have a huge issue.
I agree. I don't disagree with anything you said. And the Tyler Guyton hold was one of those borderline calls to me, like the ball was already gone and he just decided to, wrap the guy, continue. He had stuck his arm out and he just continued the motion if he had just kind of either let go or fallen on him or whatever, but he just continued that hold motion. And it went from shouldn't be called to has to be called. So I agree with you on that one as well. He was funny in post-practice interviews yesterday when we're talking to Andrew Raym. He came up and stood in the back. He's 6'8", stood in the back and pretended like he was holding a camera in Andrew Raym's face. And then he said, "What was Mr. Andrew Raym? What was the deciding? What was the most important thing about your game or whatever his question was? It was going to be an obvious answer." And Andrew Raym answered it perfectly. He said, "My right tackle, just getting to play next to my right tackle." 2 guys away, but still it's funny. Those guys have fun. And that goes back to my opening statement in the first segment about chemistry and about togetherness and everybody being on the same page, not just with the coaching staff, but with each other. And I'm not just talking about offensive line, I'm talking about the entire team. They seem to be closer. But throw a couple of losses in there, we'll see how close they are, right? That's how football works.
Yeah. The vibe, because I'm not doubting them on the chemistry front or anything like that, but last year in camp, we heard that it's the closest team that they've ever been. It's so different, all that stuff. The team went 6-7. You can be close and be bad. You can be distant and be good. Stuff like that's all good. And I get it. It matters a lot to the people in that locker room. Of all the things we hear in camp, that's the one that I'm just like, okay, cool, sweet. No one has ever come out and said in the moment, our chemistry is not really where we need it to be right now.
That's true. I don't, maybe like an NBA team has said that.
Yeah. But not a college football coach and players don't come out and be like, yeah, I hate my defense. They're the worst.
Those guys need to carry their water. Okay. So we buried the lead. Oklahoma has a new softball commit. Okay. Maybe we didn't bury the lead. High school player, Sophia Bordy. Is that how you say your last name?
Yeah. Yeah, and she is rated some spots as the top softball player in the country in that class. She is from New Jersey. She plays her travel ball with everybody by now. Oklahoma has a commit where they play in travel ball. Everybody with me. It's the Bat Busters. You know it.
Orange County?
A couple of the OC Bat Busters, Orange County Bat Busters. That's the same pipeline that has given Oklahoma like every good player ever. Patty Gasso has that locked down. It's why they play in the Mark Campbell Invitational, all the things. But Bordy, dominant pitcher. Some of the numbers she's put up are just insane. And I know it's high school softball and it's a different measure than travel ball. But if you look at what she did, these are just her state championship performances. Ready? As a freshman, 20 strikeouts, it's a no-no. No hitter as a freshman, 20 Ks, lock it down in New Jersey. As a sophomore, 16 strikeouts. So you may say, Ryan, she got worse, but it was a perfect game. So would you rather have the 16 strikeout perfect game as a sophomore, the 20 strikeout no hitter? She's a dominant pitcher. Patty Gasso doing the thing once again, and she's off and running in that 2025 class. That I might never ever nail down when they sign, when they arrive. The softball one doesn't make sense to my brain. It does not follow the football method.
Well, yeah, you've got the committing, and then you've got the signing, and then you've got like 2 years later they're playing.
Well, they're on campus almost a whole. It feels like they're assigned for almost a whole year before they're actually making an impact on campus. But yeah, a huge start for Patty Gasso. And another one of those young arms, which will be really interesting to monitor this year because you've got Nicole May, senior, transfers, and Kelly Maxwell and Carly Keeney. Maxwell from Oklahoma State, obviously, Keeney from Liberty. All 3 of those will be departing at the end of this season. So if you're wondering why did like a Peyton Monticelli come in as a sophomore from Wisconsin, what is Kirsten deal? What's the path? Both those going to be sophomores this year. Well, it'll be bloated for 1 year, and then it'll be on the back of Deal, Monticelli, and any other portal addition. So we know that Patty Gasso likes that big staff. You've seen it. We know that Jen Rocha can manage the big staff. The rich get richer. Greatest show under all the things.
Yeah. And guys, she's not done. She announced on Twitter this morning, Go Boomer. Is that what her tweet says with the little
Yes.
bomb
Yes, with the bomb emojis.
emojis? And so that was yesterday, and then she wakes up today and does it again. So she's got another one coming. Stay tuned. We'll have it for you at All Sooners. Brian, did we hit all the football?
I think so. Do you want to do a quick injury hitter?
Injuries. That's what I wanted to do. Injuries. Yes, you did. You got to that yesterday in the wrap up. I want to do that again.
Yeah, yeah. Let's start with the three that we talked about in the post game. Drake Stoops, Dasan McCullough, Davis Bevel. Drake Stoops sounds like in the exact same spot. Brent Venables echoed what he said on Saturday. He was ready to go back in himself. Monitoring that. It feels like if they need him, they'll use him. If they don't want to use him, it's because they just want to hold him out. Dasan McCullough, Brent Venables said that they were worried potentially about a high ankle or a high element, a high sprain element. He was worried about a high ankle sprain. It sounds like it's not a high ankle sprain. So Dasan McCullough, we'll be watching that. He was in a boot on Monday. I don't remember seeing him on Tuesday. I would like to see him play this week because I think SMU would test him in coverage. I don't know if we will see him play because I think Oklahoma wants to just have him healthy and not it be a lingering thing. And then it sounds like Davis Bevel, who Brent Venables in the postgame on Saturday said potentially an MCL. He said that the issue with Bevel is an ankle sprain. So make that make sense. But that's the update from the head coach. And an ankle sprain is much better than any of the CLs in your knee plus meniscus.
Yeah. Do we have any clarity or anything on Kendall Dolby, junior college cornerback? He came in, got 5 plays, got banged up. It looked like a shoulder or something like that they were working on, but never came back in, and no one's talked about him yet.
Yeah, no clarity on Dolby. Eddie Radosevich said he told me on the morning show he saw that Cade McIntyre might have had some sort of something with his hand after taking a hit. No update there. Brent Venables talked about Cade McIntyre really glowingly and didn't mention anything of like, we'll see if he can get back in a couple of weeks. So I don't know what that means for him. And then the other two, R. Mason Thomas and Gavin Sawchuk, who were dressed but didn't play on Saturday. Those guys were held out. Brent Venables said both will be available this weekend. Again, R. Mason Thomas got rolled up on, had a sprained ankle, I believe, in camp. I think this is just a precautionary. If he can get as healthy as possible, doesn't have to linger with the ankle. And I think for Sawchuk, it was a hamstring, but it's not major. And it's something that he's mentioned that he had some stuff he was dealing with in camp. Hold over from that as well.
Also, OU is going to get a $1 billion basketball arena, or not when the voters turn it down. It's up to the voters, really. I mean, I saw where Trey Young's dad, was out kind of stumping for it. I think I saw that George Stoya was putting that out there. Sounds like a great deal. Apartments, retail, restaurants and bars, nightlife, and a little basketball. That's a big ask for voters. And they're talking about 80% of that money will be privately funded. 80% of $1 billion? I don't know about that. We'll see. I'm dubious, as you can tell. I'm skeptical. What say you?
It 80-20 split. 20 would be the public for the arena, and the $1 billion price tags for the whole entertainment district. They want to zone that as an entertainment district. If you're familiar with Norman, I think they call it North Park or whatever. It's off 24th where the Super Target and all that stuff is. It used to be just Super Target, Academy, Kohl's. Now, if you drive through there, it's everything that has moved over there. 8,000 seat. Don't remember if we said that. That's the proposal. Basically, they want to make it like a bars, restaurants, a mini Texas Live, whatever you want to call it. For me, I refer to it as a mini Battery in Atlanta, which has been wildly successful for the Braves. I'll just tell you this. I've lived in Norman a very long time. This is not a political statement. I'm just telling you, this is what life in Norman is. Doesn't matter if it's 80%, doesn't matter if it's 20%, doesn't matter if it's 5%. If you hear taxes to pay for X, it gets voted down. It was not close in 2017. They're going to get the PR machine going. I am not holding my breath that this will happen, that this will get passed.
That's exactly why I'm skeptical. I think it's going to be obviously up to the voters, and the voters are going to say, nah, not this time. Not this time. I'm thinking like what Arlington has done down between the two stadiums, what Phoenix as to Glendale maybe is a better example of what they've done around their football stadium, just with all the power and light district in Kansas City is another good example of just going somewhere and hanging out all day and doing some fun stuff and then going to a basketball game that night. Sounds like a great deal. I hope it passes. It's a basketball arena off campus, takes the student element out of it. I'm not a fan of that. I'd prefer what they're doing this year, which is getting a game at McCaslin. I'd prefer they kind of look into expanding McCaslin for men's and women's basketball. That would be a raucous atmosphere, or ruckus, as Bob Stoops used to say.
Two things on the student angle. One, again, as a Norman person, that super target over there, if you're ever through it while school's in session, every sorority is represented with like oversized t-shirts. Every fraternity dude's there. Yep. It's not an issue. Two, the students don't come anyway. I don't understand why anyone's worried about the students. The students don't get off the. It's a different kind of student this day. They all leave at halftime of the football games. They're not loud and rowdy. The students don't show up unless it's Buddy Hield or Trae Young. So I don't know why. Who gives a hoot? It's an 8,000 seat arena. If they're good, you'll get 8,000 people from Norman and Oklahoma City because you can actually make it to a 6 p.m. tip in that area as opposed to going all the way and being stuck in the Highway 9 log jam. Who cares about the students? If it's an issue and there's demand, OU can bus over there. When I was a freshman at Oklahoma, for dorm move-in, this is not football, this is not basketball, this is dorm move-in. At 9 p.m., they struck a deal with Target to open up Target to just college kids. If there's anything that you needed, and they bust all of the dorms over there and back, if there was anything you needed move-in week and you just have a car or whatever, if that's what it's all hinging on, they can bus students back and forth. Nobody walks to the Lloyd Noble Center from campus anyway. They all drive over, especially in the cold. Screw worrying about the students. Build a stadium.
I'll tell you who worries about the students is Porter Moser. He goes out and really tries to nurture that and bring them in and actively recruit students to come to his games. Play a better brand of basketball, they'll come.
And they came for Alabama. You beat them, and then you squandered it with literally everything else you did the rest of the year.
That was a big waste. Ryan, good stuff, man. Appreciate you jumping on.
Absolutely. We'll see ya.
All right, coming up next on the All Sooners podcast, it's the Randall Sweet Show. We got a lot of recruiting to talk to. Got a big one coming this week, commit, plus some others coming down the line. All that's next on the All Sooners podcast. All right, guys, final segment of the All Sooners podcast. And I will remind you every time right here because this is a perfect opportunity to do it. If you do like the podcast, go ahead and like us. Give us a nice 5-star rating. Like us on social media. Share us with your networks on social media. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. Love those comments. Most of them. Some of them are pretty stupid. And some of them, you don't know me. Don't pretend that you know me. You know who you are. So let's get to some recruiting. Randall has joined us for the final segment. We're coming off a little bit of a high, I think, on the fan base with David Stone committing to Oklahoma. I don't think there was ever a presumption. I don't think anybody was operating under any ideas really firmly that Dominic McKinley last week was going to commit to Oklahoma. He was a guy that had OU in his top 4, 5, 6, whatever that was. Nobody ever thought he was coming to Oklahoma. It was always LSU. It was always Texas. It was always someone other than Oklahoma, and that proved out. But may have some good mojo going again this week. I think the general consensus is that Nigel Smith out of Melissa, Texas, is going to commit to the Oklahoma Sooners. We think, but we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, after losing out on a commitment from McKinley last week to A&M. Nigel Smith's another guy who's got A&M in his final 5, I think. And I think you've said it on the podcast before. Anytime A&M is involved, especially late in the process, you can't. Nothing's for certain. But I would say that with Nigel Smith going to OU, it looks very good. He loves the coaching staff. He loves the kind of the initiatives that they've got going on. Behind the scenes at OU, like he told me he loves the Soul Mission, that nowhere else in the country is doing anything like that. And he said just in general, he really likes the way that OU prepares you for life after football, and they care about their athletes, beyond the football field. And, that hasn't changed. again, a 73-0 win in week one is certainly going to help, boost spirits and things like that. So with Nigel Smith, unless something crazy goes on with A&M, here at the last second, I would really expect that OU gets a commitment there. And that's a huge win for them. That's a great
Yeah.
defensive line player that can help you go into the SEC. That he's got big time offers from other programs. He's really highly coveted. Ohio State, Penn State are two schools that are hard on the trail for him. Texas, another one. A&M, who you're going to be playing in the SEC potentially. These are good programs that you want to beat out on the recruiting trail, and to compete in the SEC, you're going to have to continuously win those battles. So getting a guy like Nigel Smith, that's huge if they can get a commitment from him on Friday.
For sure, Randall, and it's even huger, if that's a word. It's even more huge, right? To come off the heels of David Stone.
Right.
You got David Stone on the inside. You put Nigel Smith on the outside. Think about that for a second. Nigel Smith, watch his film. He is extremely athletic, long arms, big chest, powerful, hits guys, knocks them back. What Brent Venables said just yesterday that he likes to see out of his D lineman, right? You put that with the skills that he's already developed as a young high school player. He knows how to use his hands. He plays with good pad level despite being 6'4", 6'5". He's a big dude who plays low. And he, like I said, uses his hand, provides some thump at the line of scrimmage, meaning he hits guys and pushes them back. You love to see that. And then pair him with David Stone. Bro, what kind of combination are you getting there on the D line?
And that's a lethal combination. And that's what you need going into the SEC because, we're loving that combination. But guess what? Teams like Georgia, teams like Alabama, even maybe a Tennessee and LSU, they're going to have combinations like that themselves. These teams recruit at an elite level, just like OU is trying to do, and they're going to have those elite defensive linemen. So for OU to even be able to compete with those programs in the SEC, they're going to need to have the same thing, and they're going to need to have elite players in the trenches on both sides of the ball. But specifically with Nigel Smith, you kind of talked about his length, how big he is. His dad was a 6'10", 280-pound basketball player, actually at SMU, who the Sooners will face this weekend. So he comes from an athletic background. His dad is a huge man. I don't want to speculate. I'm not a doctor, but Nigel could even grow more, maybe not in height, but he still could probably put on an extra weight when he gets to college. There's a lot of room there. And this is a guy who, like you said, extremely powerful when he punches with his hands. A lineman, those tackles on the edge are when he gets his hands right in the middle of their chest, they're on their heels a lot of times. And if you're trying to block him with a tight end or with a running back, that's not going to happen. He was going to toss that guy out of the way and destroy the ball carrier. And like you said, with David Stone, who's another guy, David Stone, we've talked about it. He can play inside, he can play outside. Imagine you could put another, you could have both of those two guys on the edges and put some other guys in the middle, depending on the scheme, the formation, who you're playing, stuff like that. The possibilities of how versatile those two guys are, that really adds to, being able to put both of them on the field and kind of move them around different gaps on the defensive line.
Yeah. Now, Melissa is basically the Buc-ee's stop on Highway 75, but you're going to go over there. You're going to drive over. It's just across the border. It's not a huge drive for you. So you're going to be there for his game. He's going to announce at before the game?
Yeah, so I think the game kicks off around 7:30. He said he's going to announce right before 7:20, 7:25 around then. So I'll be there. We'll get some highlights of him after he commits. We'll get some highlights of him during the game, and then we'll see what happens from there. But I expect OU fans to be pleased with the results. But again, you never know. These things are never finalized until it actually happens, and especially with a team like A&M. Who we know how they will operate in recruiting. They're dangerous until the last moment.
Randall, let's make some predictions, if you don't mind. I'm going to grill you. You're going to predict, and then everybody's going to point their finger and laugh when it doesn't happen. Let's start on the offensive line. We'll kind of do this a little bit alphabetical, I guess. Young man from London, England, who was in town on Saturday, taking his official visit. I think it was an official to Oklahoma. He was there for Arkansas State. Daniel Akinkunmi,
yeah,
guard from London, seriously, England.
Yeah, so this is a kid who plays for the NFL Academy, which is a program trying to kind of spread the game globally. Really cool initiative there. There's actually a really cool story that was written about him and his trip to Oklahoma this weekend by an ESPN reporter. So definitely go check that out if you're interested in something like that. But this is a kid who can play all five positions on the line: center, guard, tackle. In college will probably be an interior player, but you always love that ability to kind of be a swing guy, have the versatility to play wherever you need him to. And he's got some really good offers on his offer sheet. I know Clemson's there. I think LSU is also on his offer sheet. So some good programs that OU is definitely gonna have to compete with. But by all accounts, he loved his trip to Norman this weekend. I mean, any time that you're able to get someone to come to the middle America from London, England, I mean, obviously there's some major interest there. And whenever he comes to town, it's his first college football game that he's ever seen live, and you put a 73-0, beat down on the Red Wolves, that's gonna leave an impression. And he was posting photos the entire weekend, of him in the jersey, him and his mom enjoying the trip. Even when he had to fly out of Oklahoma City, he was posting saying it's time to say goodbye, things like that. And it seems like that it was an experience that he really enjoyed. The staff seemed to make a big impression on him, and I think that eventually he's going to end up a Sooner. I don't know necessarily if he's got a date yet set for it, or I know he doesn't have a date set publicly for his commitment. But I think that could be something that we see come maybe before signing day. Potentially, I think that he'll announce, and I would assume all signs indicate that he will likely be a Sooner.
Yeah, he probably left that game going 73-0. Is that normal for American football? Is that normal, Coach? They're probably like, no, it's not normal. This was a special deal. Okay, safety athlete out of Kansas, Michael Boganowski. What's your prediction on him?
Yeah, so Boganowski, our man Parker Thune was up seeing him last weekend or a few weekends ago. I can't remember exactly when. Yeah. And I mean, this kid is a crazy athlete. He had, I think Parker was saying, 10 tackles in the first quarter. I mean, he was scoring touchdowns, getting his team, willing them to overtime. I mean, this is a kid who's playing at a small school in Kansas, Junction City, Kansas. They were actually playing against Hayes, Kansas, which is where Jaron Kanak is from. So he was at the Brent Venables camp this summer, not camping, but just there as a visitor, kind of taking everything in. On a visit to Norman over the summer, he 6'2", around 205 pounds, probably translates to maybe even a cheetah position in college. We have yet to be seen because he's, like you said, he's an athlete. He plays a little linebacker, some safety, maybe a box safety type role. But again, I think that being so close to Norman, just a few hours up north there in Junction City, and the relationship that the staff has kind of cultivated with him. They've really expressed early that he was a guy that was really important to them. They really wanted to get him on board in the class, despite him only being a 3-star, maybe low 4-star recruit. The staff made sure that he knew he was a priority. Kind of like with some of these guys, like a James Nesta that they got earlier in the cycle. But this Boganowski is a different style of player, much more athletic, really not well. I don't mean that as a slight to James Nesta, much faster of a player, I guess I should say. Plays with a lot more speed, flies around the field, sideline to sideline, goes downhill and really lays a hit. While he does play offense in high school, I think in college, being like I said, cheetah, box safety, linebacker type role, I think that he would be exactly what Sooner fans love in that fly around the field and just lay the wood type of player.
All right, one of the top offensive linemen in this class, interior offensive lineman, I think, although no, he also plays tackle, I believe, Grant Brix from Iowa. Huge get for Oklahoma if they can land him.
Yeah, I think that the Sooners really like where they stand with him. From everything that I've been told, he has a great relationship with Bill Bedenbaugh, with Jerry Schmidt, with some of the other members of the staff, and that's really, really important. Those are the guys that he's going to be basically living in the film room, on the practice field, in the weight room with for the next 3-4 years if he does decide to go to Norman. So having a great relationship with those guys already is huge. But like you said, this would be a huge get for Oklahoma because you go into Iowa, you grab an offensive lineman from in-state. The University of Iowa usually does a pretty good job, producing these offensive linemen. We know that their weight program is really impressive as well. And so if the Sooners can go into Iowa and grab a guy from there, that'd be great, especially over other schools like Alabama. This is a guy who has some really good offers. And I think that it's just a matter of time before he announces, and I think that OU is in a very, very good spot with Grant Brix.
Yeah, he's right, not far from Nebraska, but he's strongly leaning toward. I've seen some crystal balls and stuff for Kansas State, but if Oklahoma can pull him out of that, away from those two schools, absolutely huge for Bill Bedenbaugh and those guys. Oklahoma doesn't sign a lot of highly touted offensive linemen. Bill Bedenbaugh gets a lot of 3-star type guys and then develops them into first or second round draft picks, right? So that's just his history. Here's a guy that you and I think, have both seen this early preseason, Devon Jordan, cornerback out of Union. What do you think about his overall situation?
Yeah, I mean, this is another guy that OU is going to have to battle with some SEC opponents like Alabama to get a commitment from him. I think the other schools in his top 5: TCU, Oklahoma State, and Texas A&M. So another future SEC opponent. And this is a guy who plays at Union. We know that this is a program that OU is very familiar with. They love to recruit guys out of there. Union's usually a winning program, and we know that Brent Venables and the staff love to get guys who come from winning programs. I mean, you can never say enough about guys who know how to win. They know what it takes to be great. They know what it takes. They know that they have to put in that work, and that's expected of them. This is a guy that you saw him cover, one of the best receivers in the 2025 class, Isaiah Mazie. So, he's got that experience going up against a lot of top players. And I think that the OU has done a really good job. Again, like I said, with Pogonowski, making sure that he knows he's a priority. When I went out to see him at Bixby's team camp, he told me that OU flew out to see him in a private workout. They flew all the way from Norman to Tulsa, flew out to see him in a private workout, and he said that really meant a lot to him that they took the time to do that. They invited him to the spring game, and when he was at the spring game, they brought him down onto the field. They got to kind of show him what that was like, and he said that he was one of the only recruits who got to go out in the middle of the field, kind of got to experience that. And he told me that that the coaching stuff, going out of their way to do stuff like that, really meant a lot to him, and it showed him that they believe in him, and that he's not just a local kid who gets thrown an offer because he's got other good offers, that they really like Devon as a player, and they want him in the class.
You think he chooses OU?
I think, sorry, that was the original question. Yes, I think that in the end it will be OU, because that relationship they cultivated. I mean, getting to stay home is a lot more appealing when you know that they believe in you there.
Right. Okay, another Tulsa kid, someone who I've seen. I really like his game, Daniel Okoye, Danny Phantom, as he goes by on Twitter. He posted a tweet a couple of days ago after coming back from his visit to Oklahoma, 73-0, Arkansas State, season opener. He comes back and says, well, now I might – wait, no, he says, now I have my own top 3, so I might not even have to wait till October. What do you make of that, and does he choose OU?
Well, first, how much Danny Phantom did your kids watch?
A little bit. Okay. I know who Danny Phantom is.
Okay, that's why I was asking, because I was a big Danny Phantom fan as a kid. But back to Danny Okoye, I think that obviously the tweet you read off indicates that OU's in a great spot. I mean, we saw something kind of similar with Caden Durham, where he went to LSU, and then as soon as he comes back from LSU, he says, "All right, I'm ready to move my commitment date up." And in that case, we saw what that indicated. And again, obviously those two situations are not one and one, but I think that it's pretty easy to read between the lines and see what that means. I think that again, the staff is now that they know that they can really focus on Danny Okoye, that they want to get these elite edge rushers. We mentioned Nigel Smith. Danny Okoye would be another one. To kind of bookend what they've already added in David Stone and Jaden Jackson that are more interior guys. And if you can round out that group, those two edge groups with Danny Okoye, with Nigel Smith, I mean, that's two high 4-star players that are elite talents. You've seen Okoye, and I think that pitch to him has really resonated. And I think that with Nwaneri being, a Missouri commit, I think that maybe OU has been pushing a little harder at Okoye now. And I think that he maybe looks at it as he's got the path to be the star a lot quicker than he would be, where he might be overshadowed if Nwaneri was coming to OU. If Nwaneri and Nigel Smith will come to OU, that's two high pass rushers. Not that he doesn't think he can compete with them, but snaps might be limited, practice reps might be limited, and it might be easier to go elsewhere if those two were to be in Norman, where you can, have a clearer path. But now with it looking like Nwaneri is going to be in Columbia, it's a lot more reasonable for Okoye to come to Oklahoma and earn reps on the field a lot quicker.
I'm sure a lot of our
for that
listeners.
reason,
Sorry, I'm sure a lot of our listeners and our viewers have heard the same, or at least seen, read whispers of the same type that Nwaneri might possibly still flip. OU still recruiting him hard. They're hoping for a flip, and we've talked about it ever since the shoes and the gloves here at Union High School. So I don't think he's off the table yet. That would be a party at the quarterback if you got Okoye and Nigel Smith to go with David Stone and were able to flip Nwaneri. That would be a party at the quarterback. It would be a terrifyingly good defensive line. Eddie Pierre-Louis, a offensive guard. What do you think his chances of picking Oklahoma are?
I think that right now OU still has some work to do with Eddie, and I think that Michael Hawkins is probably going to play a lot into that. He actually visited Norman the same weekend as Nwaneri, back on, I think, June 9th that weekend. There's a few other guys there. Hawkins, I know, was there that weekend. Nwaneri, Eddie Pierre-Louis. A few other guys were there, but Hawkins and Pierre-Louis seem to have a good relationship. If you're able to get Hawkins on the phone, in his ear continually, maybe that does convince him to, to kind of change his mind to come all the way from Florida out to Norman, Oklahoma. But right now, all the signs seem like he wants to stay closer to home and be at UCF, which is right there. I think he's from either Tampa or Orlando. I can't remember exactly which one, but UCF is right there, local, really close to both of those cities. And so, with them joining the Big 12, with them being so close to home, they've done a really good job of recruiting local there at UCF. I know Stacey Gage, I think, is a running back in the 2024 class, a 4-star who they got over OU also. And so I think that right now, with the push that UCF is making locally, it's going to be really hard for OU to overcome that. And I think there's a strong chance he does end up at UCF. But with that being said, OU is in his top 5. And, like I said, Bill Bedenbaugh is a great offensive line coach. That's been proven. Michael Hawkins has a good relationship with Pierre-Louis. So with those two things combined, I think that OU is going to have a shot. And I think that they're not going to put down the phone until, we've talked about it before, until pen hits paper.
And last one, Zina Umeozulu, defensive end. You think he's? This is a prospect that I haven't seen highlights of yet. Haven't done a lot of studying on. Don't know a whole lot about. Tell me about him and what you think his chances of going to Oklahoma are.
Yeah, this is a kid from Allen, Texas. He's a senior defensive end. He's a little slim right now, which may be a bit of a deterrent for not a deterrent, but he will need to add weight if he wants to play earlier at Oklahoma. I think he's about 220 or 230 right now, which to play on the edge at Oklahoma, he'd need to add some weight, especially in the scheme that they like to run. But obviously very talented. He's a 4-star recruit. And OU has offered him. They've been pursuing him. This is a guy they obviously want in the class. And we kind of talked about it. It would be a party at the quarterback if you can get all these, talented defensive linemen. Well, Zina's just another guy to throw on that list. If you can add him to a David Stone, if Nigel Smith ends up committing, then I mean that's 2 talented edge rushers with a David Stone and James Jackson, some elite defensive linemen to go around them. And we talked about it kind of in passing with Nwaneri, but if you're on the defensive line with a bunch of other great defensive linemen, that offensive lineman the offensive coordinator can't key on one specific player. And if you're Zina Umeozulu, that's got to be appealing, knowing that David Stone's in the class, knowing that Nigel Smith might be in the class in just a few days. But I still think that, Zina's commitment is tonight. I still think that OU's got some work to do before he makes his announcement if they want to earn a commitment from him today. I think that right now Texas is in a really good spot for him. But again, you never know; these things can change really quickly. At the last hour, we've seen, David Stone said that he walked up and planned on picking Miami before he picked OU. So really, you never know what's going to happen. I would assume though that Zena is probably not in the cards for OU at the moment.
Okay, he's committing tonight, you said.
Yep, tonight.
Okay, so either I'm going to have to really hustle to get this podcast posted, or I'm going to do some fancy editing at the end of this podcast. Good stuff, Randall. Any other thoughts on you're going to Melissa this weekend? You're going to see Nigel Smith, talk to him, shoot video. Any other thoughts about your weekend plans? That's before coming back home for the Oklahoma SMU game on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think it's going to be exciting. OU's going to have some good prospects into this SMU game. I know that at least one really talented offensive lineman in the 2025 class will be there. And I know that there's a few other recruits I can't think of off the top of my head, but I'm sure that at some point this weekend, allsooners.com will have a list of some of the players who are confirmed to be there. And I think that it's going to be a fun matchup this weekend between OU and SMU. A little more offense on the other side.
Got to generate some pass rush. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, thanks, Randall.
Appreciate it, Hoop.
And thank you guys for listening. As always, we'll be back next Saturday night from the post-game press conference, from the press box, actually, with the episode, what would that be, 205 of the All Sooners podcast, post-game podcast. You can catch that one in all of our shows on Apple, Google, Spotify, Podbean, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts. If you have an Amazon-enabled device, just say, Alexa, play the All Sooners podcast. It's also posted on our website, allsooners.com. Just click on the link on your player, your tablet, your phone, your computer. And of course, everything we do is posted on my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. So check that out, like and subscribe. For Ryan Chapman, for Randall Sweet, I am John Hoover. See you guys.